tuning in to another episode of Disrupt Health Tech. I am your host, Wendy Austin, and today we're going to talk about when you should start to market your products. With me today is Melissa Fors Shackelford, who is a health tech founder and advisor to other health tech startups, as well as an author with a book coming out this month. Welcome, Melissa, to Disrupt Health Tech. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us more about your background?
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much for having me. I know we're aligned on a lot of things. I think it's going to be a great conversation. So to introduce myself, Melissa Fors Shackelford. So I've been in healthcare and health tech for nearly 20 years, leading marketing and growth at some Fortune 50s like Optum and Evernorth Health Services by Cigna, or also leading marketing at national behavioral health nonprofits like Hazelden and Betty Ford, and several health tech companies like Let's Get Checked and Mobilize Health. And these days, I really advise founders and business leaders at emerging companies on how to build their purpose-driven brands.
Very good. And you've also written a blog about how startups should begin marketing efforts from day one. However, some founders may say that they need to start with and focus on their product first. What would you say to them about starting with just the product first?
I think that's sort of a misconception that they have to just focus on the product, because frankly, product and marketing really should be embedded with each other. And you really need to have marketing and those market insights as you build your product, because we all know one of the biggest mistakes founders have is they get too far down the road and they don't have a product market fit, or they think this is their ideal customer profile and it's really not. So really saying from the get-go that marketing needs to be there hand in glove with the product team so that you can really truly solve the right problems for your customers and understand how to move forward and acquire those customers.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And how important is it for a health tech startup to start to build their brand?
I think it's so important early on to build your brand, particularly in healthcare and health tech, because we all know that healthcare is an industry built on trust, and it takes a lot of time to build trust. And your brand isn't just your logo or your tagline. It's really about what you're known for, and building that with whether it's your patients, the providers, the health systems, the payers, whoever in the healthcare ecosystem you're selling to. That takes a lot of time. And there's so much you can do really to lay that groundwork early. Before you ever get to any spending of marketing budget, you're laying the groundwork early to let people know who you are. Because especially when you're an emerging brand, no one knows who you are. No one's going to click on your ad. No one's going to open your email. No one's going to answer your call. Yeah. So that's where building that early as much as you can and getting to be trusted by all the partners in your particular vertical is really critical.
Yeah, exactly. What happens if they're not done developing their product yet? Should they continue to build up a brand even if the product may change in the future?
Wendy, I think some people might disagree with me, but I think always you need to start that early and often. And like we said, marketing can be a hand in glove with the product team, but there's other things you can do before your product is really ready for launch. And a lot of that is laying the groundwork. So when I think about things like in the startup world, your founder is part of your brand. And so making sure your founder is known, getting your founder to write blogs or write blogs for them, get them on podcasts like this, get them out there speaking at conferences, getting them to be a known entity. Same with your brand, making sure your brand is publishing those blogs and your brand is getting out there. Your brand is establishing a social media presence. None of that costs any marketing budget. Beyond that, all of those assets that you're building that are things like your podcasts episodes, your social media posts, the blogs, the white papers, any of that, those all really, in my experience, compound over time. So those social media posts get shared. Those, your founder starts to build a following on LinkedIn or on other social platforms. All of those podcasts, again, those are reshared or they start to rank on Google. All of those things are things you don't have to pay for, but you can get that started right away. even if you're not quite sure where your product is going to end up, and I think we know, and we've both worked with enough emerging brands to know that a lot of times there's a left turn here or there with your product, but odds are your vision and your values are already established, and that's the kind of thing that starts to build trust with your customers. So that even before you really truly launch that product, people are starting to say, oh, I've heard of them. Oh, I'm watching for when they're ready to launch their product. And all of that is really, really, it's not costing you money. It's just a little bit of kind of elbow grease to start to get your brand out there.
Yeah. And I would say too, the founder's message is really powerful. And I think that if the founder explained, hey, we thought we were going to do this, and now we're going to do this based on hearing from, others in the industry or our customers, consumers, I think that really ties in well with the brand and making sure that you get the founder's voice and face out there.
Yeah, I think we're very, very aligned on that. I think in the emerging businesses, that founder really is the brand is the founder, and making sure that people see them as an authentic communicator, see them as trustworthy. That way they're going to follow them, whichever path they go, if they're solving the customer problems.
Right, exactly. So now in your article, 6 Reasons Why Founders Should Prioritize Marketing from Day One, you talk about starting marketing early can help with CAC, or customer acquisition costs. Can you expand upon this?
Yeah, I think it's really important. And so often, and I think you and I both agree on this one, people think of marketing as just spending money. And marketing is so much more than that. But marketing can be, if you don't do it right, it can just be about spending money. And then it gets to be very, very expensive to acquire customers through paid means. And when you're talking, whether you're talking direct to consumer, B2B, or B2B2C, it's very, very expensive to acquire customers just through that mechanism. So if you're starting early and really starting with that almost kind of a warm-up period, if you will, to build your brand through all of the unpaid ways, unpaid tactics that we have, things that I just mentioned, writing articles, doing social media posts, building your followers on social media. It's such a great way to start to build followers for your founder or for your brand. Writing those articles, starting to build trust and build followers for your brand. So you're starting in that respect. But the other thing is not just the brand awareness. Beyond that is you can start to test your messaging early. Before you're spending money on ads, you can test your messaging, seeing what resonates with your audience through these organic tactics. And so that when you're ready to start spending money, you already know this is your customer, you validated it. This is the messaging that's working. So that when you're finally ready to start spending money, you're not wasting money over here on this. You think you're a direct-to-consumer brand, but you're really a B2B brand. Well, that shift we know happens a lot, but it's painful, it's expensive, it takes a lot of time away from your growth trajectory. So all of that early validation. And in fact, I often recommend before brands start to spend a lot of money on some kind of expensive marketing campaign, is that they take not only the time to build all this warm-up period, but also spend the money on market research. If you're going to spend spend it on that market research, do your focus groups, do your user studies, test that messaging early and often so that you can really jump in hard and feel confident when it's time to start to really grow.
Yeah, I totally agree. We did a bit of market research with the user group and gave an open-ended question of, well, what do you think this product is? And it was amazing to the founders of what their answers were. And, unfortunately, it was like completely different than what their product actually was. So I totally agree. And all we were testing was we showed them what the product was, a picture of the product and everything, and the marketing messaging that went with it. And there was a clear disconnect between the two. So we were able to adjust and change the messaging and realize that we needed to actually do a bit of education for the user before they really understood what the product was, because it gets complicated.
That's just so powerful when you can find that early.
Yeah.
So that you're not wasting your dollars. I mean, the other thing is just in general, I'm such a fan of the unpaid marketing tactics.
Yeah.
Because why put all of your eggs in one basket with the paid media, because there's so many other ways that you can grow your brand without spending the money. And I think if you have a real nice diversified marketing strategy, that way you're leveraging the earned and the owned as well as your paid, but not relying 90% on the paid. That throws your customer acquisition cost just out of whack. And I think that's, again, it's where leaning into an early marketing strategy, but as also a diversified marketing strategy and focusing on that market research, like you're talking about in that example, that's invaluable that they didn't go too far down that path.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So once a health tech startup is ready to commercialize their product, how does this affect the marketing strategy at that point if they have already been engaging in marketing from day one?
So I think when you are ready to commercialize, this is when most organizations, or especially emerging companies, are saying, now we're finally going to start doing marketing. And again, like we've talked about, that's probably a little too late. But this is where typically they start to have a marketing budget. So it's shifting from that storytelling to the scale. And this is where a strong performance marketing strategy will help you just leapfrog what the competition is doing. But again, if you've done all the laying the groundwork, you have some brand awareness so that people are going to click on your ads. You have some brand awareness so people are going to open your emails. You have some brand awareness so that the media is going to take your pitch. All of these things. So you've done the groundwork. You understand that you have a message that resonates. You're solving a problem for this particular customer. And this is where then when you're ready to really commercialize, you can start to spend some money and just use that to accelerate really those paid tactics to accelerate what you're already kind of confident in. But again, like we just said, I'm a big fan of not just relying on that paid media budget, because there's so many other things you can do to round it out, as well as reduce your customer acquisition costs. Because we all know investors are hyper focused on the customer acquisition costs.
Yes, they are.
Well, as they should be, because otherwise you're buying your market.
All right, very good. When I talk with health tech startups myself, I often hear that they're not ready for marketing yet. So in your opinion, is there ever a situation when you would agree that a startup is not ready for marketing?
So I think some people you talk to would say, yeah, I think, you have to wait until you know this or that. Or I would say it's just kind of what part of marketing are you ready for? I think if you have a founder and you have a vision, you can start to talk externally about who you are, what your vision is. But even if you're not quite sure who your customer profile is, I think I've done this a number of times. I know you have, is really spending your time and effort from a marketing perspective. It doesn't have to be a lot of dollars, but spending that to validate early. So if you're not quite sure who your customer is, spending that time really validating early, because I can't tell you how many times I've helped business leaders make that shift and say, oh, we thought we were a B2C company and we're shifting to B2B, or vice versa. And it's a very expensive shift. You're losing all of the momentum that you could have had. And you're just really, it's painful. And you lose, honestly, credibility in the marketplace, because people say, well, what were you doing? And I always caution people, and I suspect you do too, that direct to consumer is very, very expensive. I mean, it's a bloodbath out there to acquire customers, especially in the health tech space. Because we know there's different industries out there, but in healthcare in particular, everyone is a healthcare consumer. And so whether you're selling direct to patients, to health systems, to payers, employers, EAPs, what have you, we know it's really very, very expensive to go direct to consumer. And you need to be very confident in your path. That's where I always I'm a fan of B2B and B2B2C, because it's just much more cost effective.
Yeah, and the direct to consumer is also very regulated too. So if you're not careful, you could potentially get into hot water.
Oh yeah, we could talk for hours about the people who come to healthcare and don't realize what a highly regulated industry it is, and it's very different than other industries, and frankly, it should be treated with extra love and care, because our healthcare is our most precious asset for ourselves and for our loved ones.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We had talked previously about healthcare and healthcare brands being purpose-driven. So why is it so important for health tech startup brands to be purpose-driven?
I think, just like I just said, when you think about healthcare in particular, trust is so important, because our health is our most precious asset. And so when we think about trust being so important in healthcare in particular, building those meaningful, authentic connections with customers, whether it's B2B or B2C, doesn't really matter. In healthcare, it's so important to build that trust. And that's where knowing what you stand for, knowing what your values are, and really defining explicitly what's your purpose, builds that authentic connection with your end user customers. More so, I think, than any other industry, just because of the nature of healthcare.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about your book that's coming out. Would you like to share what it is about and who should read it?
Yeah, so it's Harnessing Purpose, A Marketer's Guide to Inspiring Connection. I'm really excited. It's coming out soon. And the real focus is very, very, I think, valuable to those that are starting brands in healthcare, because it's all about creating that meaningful, authentic connection with the customers. And we know these days, just across all industries, trust is down, employee engagement is down. We know that particularly Gen Z, but probably all generations, really want to work with organizations and work with companies that they can identify with their values. And that's where I focus a lot in my book about my experience in working with different brands, particularly in healthcare, about really defining what their purpose is, defining what they stand for, and defining what their values are.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much for your time today, Melissa. I really enjoyed our discussion on when startups should begin their marketing efforts. For more information about either Disrupt Health Tech or Melissa's book, Harnessing Purpose, A Marketer's Guide to Inspiring Connection, please see the links below. Thank you so much for attending today, and see you next episode.
Thanks, Wendy.